So if you and I sat down to talk about photography, it probably wouldn't take me very long to make the comparison between skateboarding and photography. The two for me have just always gone hand in hand. I happen to get into both of them at the exact same time. And there are so many different similarities between the two, but what I've never really discussed in one specific video is just the importance of photography and documenting skateboarding. The role of photo and video in skateboarding are both just huge aspects of it that without those two things, skateboarding and the culture of skateboarding, the business of skateboarding, it would be completely different without that. For someone like me growing up in rural Ohio with no real skate scene around here, there wasn't any skate shop in town. The first couple of years, before I could actually start going outside of just my local area, any, exposure to the skate culture or the whole world of skateboarding, my only exposure to that was through skate magazines and skate videos. That's all me and my friends had, downloading videos on LimeWire and watching those. And obviously all of the skate magazines as well. I used to have the pages of the skate magazines completely covering the walls of my room when I was a teenager. So the way we dressed, the music we listened to, everything that we did growing up through those years, it was all shaped just by the skate magazines and the skate videos. And nowadays, I guess you can make the argument about, having some sort of like numerical value of scoring skateboarding, with it being in the Olympics now and everything, which is just a whole conversation that we don't have time for today. Skateboarding itself doesn't have a scoreboard. It doesn't have a referee or a goal, or for someone to be a professional skateboarder, you're measuring the ability of the skateboarder based on what it is they can do with their skateboard, the tricks that they can do. In order to do that, you have to have the proof. Without the proof, it's just, a bunch of stories, and that's not going to cut it. So I'm not equating the two between, the difficulty of skateboarding and the difficulty of photography or video. I'm not saying that the difficulty levels are the same by any means, but it's just interesting to think if you look at any professional skateboarder at any era, if you remove all of the photographers and the filmers that were there to document what that person was doing, they wouldn't have the same career. Just, they wouldn't really have one without that. Now, skateboarding isn't the only thing that photography and video are going to, play such a pivotal role in, but I do think it has sort of a unique case that I wanted to talk about. And I can't really speak from my own personal experience when it comes to shooting skate photos, or at least at that level. I was shooting photos of my friends around our local spots. I wasn't doing this professionally, but luckily I have some friends who have been doing it professionally for a long time. I called up my good friend Matt Price, who is one of my favorite skate photographers of all time. His work, the way he approaches the work, and sort of the fun, loose nature of it, his work ethic in general, Matt's just the best. So I wanted to call him and just pick his brain on all of this, because he's one of those people that anytime we talk, we're usually on the phone for an hour or two just nerding out about photography. So unfortunately, my end of the call didn't record as planned, so I'm going to share everything that Matt had to say here, but I'll give you some context leading into each clip just so you know kind of what the conversation was and where he was coming from. We hopped on the call, and I just mentioned what prompted this call in the first place, just this idea of documenting skateboarding and having the proof of something. And Matt immediately drew comparisons to something that I had never heard before, but it was just spot on.
That's why skating is so different and unique, because not only, yes, there's other things that work like that, but we require it. It's absolutely required for like the whole ecosystem is like proof of this elusive thing, maybe it's closer to like nature, like wildlife, like planet Earth and stuff, where like you go and like those guys, you see the shot of like, let's say the salmon spawning upstream, and it's the slow-mo shot of the salmon jumping and the eggs or whatever, some crazy shot. We went for 6 months, 5 days a week. We sat there for 8 hours a day under like a camo blanket and in the rain and and then finally on month 7, we got that one shot of the salmon, and you're like, oh, they're actually way gnarlier than skaters, because they're just like, when they shoot it, it looks beautiful too. It's like they want it captured in a certain way, the same way skaters do. You're like, oh, it has to be shot like this, and we can't shake the camera, it has to be fisheye, whatever. So there's all this preparation made for a thing that may never even happen, and you just have to keep preparing for it for the time that it happens, and it feels insane.
Outside of documenting just individual moments, we also talked about sort of documenting skateboarding as a whole. looking at the big picture of skateboarding over time and how the progression of skateboarding has been documented. And as Matt mentions, in more ways than one.
For a long time in skateboarding, progression meant harder tricks, right? That was what everyone was focused on. Like, who can progress harder tricks, from like Gonz and Nodis skating rails to like, Rodney Mullen doing flip tricks and really technical skating and Plan B videos. And like, we kind of hit a point where technically most everything's been done because we got too far. And now sometimes when people are like pushing in a technical skating progression, it's just too much, and they lost people, right? One exception I will say, like Shane O'Neill's new part is incredible. Like he kind of really tasteful tech. I think he does it really well. If anyone's going to do it, it's going to be him. But that's the thing. There's only a handful of people you want to see progress skating in that way at this point. So to me, skating is always about progression, but progression, what it looks like, will change. Representation is progression. Diversity is progression to me. Like seeing different types of people on a skateboard. I want to see so many different types of skaters because I want to see skating look different. And, with all the women involved in skating now, it's like so cool to see a different perspective, or see how they look at a spot, or see how they do a trick, or see how they, how they styled those shoes, or like things that just like because everyone used to do that stuff. Like everyone, it was like, oh, you look at a mag and you'd see someone's gear and you'd be like, that's sick. And when I watch like so many new types of skaters that bring a whole new eye to the whole thing, right? About how they view the whole package. And again, that's progression to me. No, they're not doing flip in, flip out, manual combo. Like they're not doing anything you haven't seen trick wise, but they're doing it in their own way. And that could be new and that could be interesting. So I think like documenting the progression of skating is still really important, but I just think the progression looks different now. Or for me, at least, I want the progression to look different.
We discussed making a living as a photographer, not just in skateboarding, but all of the different ways that you can make a living with your camera in 2024 and how different that is going to look for each person. So I asked Matt just if someone was starting out and they wanted to make a living with photography or with video, if you're starting out and you're going to put yourself and your work out there, what advice would he give? And he had some great advice for that.
Since I was 24, I have not had a photography-only job. Like, they've always been, at the magazine, I was the photo editor as well, and I was in the office, and I was helping make those decisions. And then, since then, I've been a team manager for a bit of time, and then social media, and then a brand manager, and now I'm doing, like, photography and social media again. And it's like, you kind of have to have a few skills beyond just taking pictures of skating, or else you're not going to be, sadly, there's only a handful of people in the skate industry that have those full-time gigs shooting, and the rest of us kind of just like do whatever it takes to stay in the mix and be able to shoot skate photos sometimes for your job. So my hack for that is doing social. I make videos. I make social media videos. I help schedule social posts and put together a calendar. Like there's all these things that I know are not fun and ideal, but that's the reality of the skate photography world we live in now. Like I don't get to have a full-time job shooting skate photos. And so that's advice I would give to people is think about, the whole package and how you can offer that to someone, because that's just what the brands, are looking for now. And I know this is probably some late stage capitalism bullshit at the end of the day. It's like, oh no, you have to do 10 jobs if you want to do the one job you like. Don't get me wrong. There are some people who really go down this path and like maybe they're going to hit the fine art photography, pathway and go all in. And one day all of a sudden they're selling photos that, 15 grand a pop and they're making a really great living just shooting art. And you're like, that's amazing. That's the dream. You got to navigate that world. You got to learn all that stuff. It's hard. It's also hard. And for me, it's like a hedge, right? Like I've never been able to just go all in on one thing because I'm afraid of not being able to support myself or support my wife and, like my family. And like, that's like part of everything. So, and I know you're in the same boat. It's like, you can't raise kids hoping you're going to get that corpo gig, enough times to pay the mortgage. So it's like, what else can you do to figure it out? And I think that, which again, I'm jealous of people who have the courage to just like stick it out. Like I have friends that are like in entertainment that have like, grinded it out, not killing it, not making a lot of money with families and just like having, going through some tougher times and just really like going for the gold and then hitting that like jackpot and making it. And you're like, wow, now you're killing it. Like, that's crazy. I would have never got through the valley that you had to go through. That 10 years or whatever it was of having kids at home and eating shit, doing the lower level things. Like I've told friends that I'm just like, I'm so jealous of you because I couldn't do that. I would just go get a job. Like it would scare me too much that it might not work. So that there's something to be said for like, if you go for something very focused and specific, you might get it. It's just like, I like to spray and pray, you know, like I got a few a few skill sets I can bank on now, which is it helps my peace of mind. At the end of the day, I think people like us, if someone gave us a trust fund tomorrow, we just shoot photos, we put out photo books or magazines, and then we'd have these conversations privately, probably just for fun, and just catch up on things. And like, that would be it, you know, like there wouldn't, not saying that we don't want to do this. This is fun and it's the new, but like we're older, like our you know, it's cool that like this exists and we can do it. But at the end of the day, I think we're built to just like, I want to take pictures and print them. Like, that's really like, if I had to do one thing, take all this other stuff off my plate, that's what I would love to do.
Now, I told Matt this video that we were recording for was going to be sponsored by KEH, and I thought it would be fitting to just ask him, you know, sort of what his shopping list would be if he was starting out on KEH. And without even really giving him any direction, he just already knew what to do. Turns out he's a KEH customer himself and has been for a very long time.
I'm popping onto KEH because I wanted to look at this, I want to search something. It's funny, I've been using KEH for like 20 years, so. I was buying like Sunpack 555s on KEH in like, you know, 2003. Like that was like, you know, so that's how far it goes back. My starter kit for what I do personally, right? Like I think your best bet would be Canon 5D body, full frame camera, still so great, like so affordable, so accessible. OG, yeah, I mean, any of the 5Ds are great, but like if you really are on a budget, right, you can get that for a few $100. I would grab a Canon 40mm pancake lens, which again, you can get for under like $100. Great lens for the price, super compact. You just buy those two things, a card, a battery, like you're shooting, right? Immediately you're taking pictures for a couple $100, and those could be really, those photos could run on covers of magazines if you're in the right situation, right? The right lighting, stuff like that. That lens looks beautiful for the price, and like any 15 or 16 millimeter fisheye, because it's a full frame camera. There's like, you know, the Russian brands that make them, they're usually $100-200. They're not the sharpest, but they're great to learn how to shoot fish and start, you know? So right there, let's say you're in on that kit, maybe let's say $400 or $500, which is not nothing, you know, that's good. But right there, you have a full skate photography kit minus lighting. You can go out all day long and shoot skate photos, fisheye or long lens. Like, that's a great starting point to learn, right? You learn your lenses, you learn the basics of photography, you get instant gratification, you get to see it on the screen. And then from there, you know, if you want to add on light, like those Yongnuo speed lights are great. They're so cheap. Everything you need to shoot a really legit skate photo at this point for like $500 or $600. And I'm pretty sure all that stuff exists on KEH. So that's like the move, I think. Going for those, get a full frame camera, a long lens, and a fisheye. And from there, you can do so much with that.
Links to any of the available products Matt mentioned are going to be listed down below in the description. Again, a huge shout out to KEH Camera for sponsoring this video. They've been a sponsor on the channel for years, and I've been shopping with them for even longer. Whether you're looking to buy or sell used photography gear, KEH is the #1 place to do it. Anytime you're shopping with KEH, always use the links and the codes that you can find down below. The codes are going to save you some money or get you a bonus on your quote, and using my links go a long way at supporting the channel at no extra cost to you. So big thanks to KEH Camera for sponsoring this video and supporting this channel. When we were discussing the role of photojournalism in skateboarding, Matt started talking about the idea of, you know, photography being the way to break the news and to actually break the story, and just how much that has shifted with the rise of video in recent years.
I also should say, like, when I started, it was kind of at the tail end of photography being this form of skate journalism, because that's what the biggest change in skate photography over the last decade, since social media and since video kind of became king, is that skate photos are kind of no longer a way to break the news. It still is to some extent, but I think now we've shifted in this video kind of centric world that we live in to having skate photos, at least in my opinion, can just be a little weirder. They can be kind of just like art. They can kind of like, when I shoot skate photos, I never think of it like this is going to progress skating or this is going to like break some trick or break the news or whatever. I just think this is an opportunity to make skating look cool with a skater that I think is interesting and, you know, I like their skating. So that's how my shift has changed over the last 20 years of doing this, right? Like I don't care, personally, I don't care at all about skate photography as a form of journalism. That's not what excites me about it at this point. you have a lot of photographers who still do. They're still out there, and they're trying to get the new best trick and premiere it first, and that's awesome too. We need all the different types. I just think for me, and I think for a lot of people now, it's like, oh my god, the footage came out a month ago. Who cares? Print the photo in a magazine. It should look different to me. Like, it shouldn't just be the photographer sits right next to the filmer and cranks off a sequence that looks exactly the same as the footage. That was necessary again in 2000. It's not necessary now. So I figure if it's a, kickflip, back tail, big spin flip, like, I don't know, find a weird still and shoot it up close and weird, and then print that as a full page that could just be interesting to look at. And then it doesn't matter that the footage came out first. It's a whole different thing. You talked earlier about just like journalism and how skating, used to be like you had to prove it. You would prove it through the magazines. Now, I just don't see a magazine's role as much as we get further into this like video world as like being the place where you need to prove it. I think it's a place where you need to have fun. That's always, for years now, it's been my goal, is just try to make the photo feel like what it feels like to skate. Like, that's what, hence all the insanity and weird blur and spin and like hitting the lens and stuff, because I suck at skating. My skating is low key. It's this tall, and it still feels like that, right? My favorite thing is when someone does something that feels like stupid and like nothing, and I can show them a photo, and they're like, well, that actually looks cooler than I thought it would. Like, that's my favorite thing, right? Like, so especially when it's skaters who aren't super talented, like myself or any of my friends, like, oh, you just did a slappy crook on that curb. Let's make it look wild. Let's make it look like you're actually a pro skater for like, a split second. And you give someone that, and I know, because dude, I've given it to myself. I'm like, sometimes I'll want a skate photo and I'll set up a friend. I'll be like, all right, you're gonna be right here, you're gonna turn it this way, you're gonna do this, because I want that. I want to see my own skating like that. But yeah, I think it really is, like, for me, about just like making something that has the energy in it, and also, like, it used to be the rules are like, you got to show, on a transition, you got to show the drain of a pool and the lip, or you got to show the top of a handrail and the bottom of a handrail. And those were all those were the journalistic kind of rules of skate photography, so you could see the whole story. Again, I kind of thrown a lot of that shit out the window. I'm like, it's a 10 stair. I don't care about the last 2 stairs. I don't even care about the first 2 stairs. Like, it could be cool to just see a catch really close and see like 6 of the stairs in between. And then it's like, all my brain needs to know is that looks cool. I like that skater. They're skating stairs. And this is the trick, right? Like, I don't need to like get a measuring tape and know how many. I don't need to count the stairs. Like, and again, that's how I view it, and that's just my personal preference. Is like, if it's not important, I don't want to. Why are you making me focus on it? If the toe is the coolest part, or the hand, or the fingertip, or whatever, I'm like, that's what I want to fill 80% of the frame. Just give me that.
It was awesome to have Matt on the channel. We've talked many times, and we've always said we need to figure out a way to have him on the channel and make a video together. As a matter of fact, if you want to see Matt make his own channel, I've been telling him to do this for years, so leave a comment down below and give him some encouragement to make that channel, because it needs to happen. But that's it for this video. If you have any questions or thoughts of your own, you can leave them in the comments down below. Thank you all for watching. I love you guys. I'll see you soon. That's not what I wanted to do.